promised land. Today's scripture and insight. Genesis chapter 24 verses 1 to 67. Abraham had begun to inherit the promises of God by this point. He had fathered Isaac, who had become grown. And with the burial plot in Kiriath Arba, he officially owned property in Canaan, God's promised land. But God had not just promised a little land and a few descendants to him. He promised descendants as numerous as the stars and as plentiful as sand. So it became crucial for Abraham to find Isaac a wife. He commissioned the elder of his household, 24-2, essentially his chief of staff, to go to his land and family to take a wife for Isaac, 24-4. Abraham wanted to be sure that Isaac stayed true to the one true God, and he remembered the lesson of Lot, who became far too comfortable surrounded by godless people in a heathen culture. Rather than let Isaac get entangled in the same net with the Canaanites, Abraham looked to his homeland for Isaac's wife. This decision was so serious that he made the servant pledge an oath by putting his hand under Abraham's thigh, 24-2, an intimate action commonly used in those days to affirm sacred oaths. 24-5-9 Eliezer had some questions. What if the woman is unwilling to leave? 24-5. Should Isaac move to be near her instead? Abraham redoubled his intentions for Isaac to remain in the promised land, 24-6, reminding Eliezer that God himself promised to give this land to his offspring, 24-7. He had faith that God would oversee the journey so that Eliezer would find the right wife. Too many today lack that faith when it comes to finding a spouse. Only those who are committed to God and remain confident in God can expect to receive their romantic counterpart from God. 24-10-14. The servant stepped out in faith and prayed for God to reveal the right mate for Isaac. The key piece of prayer is the specific request for the girl to whom he would say, "Please lower your water jug so that I may drink," to respond by saying, "Drink, and I'll water your camels also." 24-14. This would be an act of tremendous hospitality. It was customary in those days to offer water to strangers. It was incredibly rare, however, to offer to water a stranger's animals. Eliezer's entourage was not small either. He had brought 10 of his master's camels, 24-10, and camels can drink up to 25 gallons of water. 24-15-21. To bring enough water for all the camels would have required Rebekah to haul water back and forth from the well for hours. And yet without any prodding, after offering water to Abraham's servant, she also offered to draw water for his camels until they have had enough to drink. 24-19. Not only that, but she also hurried to the well to do it. 24-20. Rebekah showed herself to be a woman with a servant's heart and a bodybuilder's strength. 24-22-33 Rebekah may have been a perfect match in terms of character, but Eliezer was still wondering whether she was from the right family. After all, he had been given specific orders to take a wife from Abraham's clan. 24-4. Imagine his relief and thrill when Rebekah introduced herself as the daughter of Bethuel son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. 24-24. It may seem odd to us, but it was comforting to Eliezer to realize that Rebekah was Isaac's cousin. 24-34-48. We should not overlook the faithfulness of the servant throughout this story. He kept his mission in front of him at all times. He had obviously rehearsed the instructions given to him by Abraham so frequently that he was able to recount the entire interaction, in extreme detail, at a moment's notice. This lengthy retelling proves how serious his task was. It also shows that marriage relationships are much more important than a bride and groom might think. The purpose of marriage is not simply personal happiness, but kingdom fulfillment. 24-49-59. The moment of truth came when the servant plainly asked Rebekah's family whether they would bless the marriage. 24-49. Laban and Bethuel acknowledged that this is from the Lord, who had orchestrated the entire event. 24-50. Interestingly, Rebekah too approved of the marriage. 24-58. Even though she had never seen Isaac. Rebekah was spiritual enough to submit her entire future to a husband she didn't even know, because she was convinced God was at work. 24-60. Rebekah's family sent her out with a blessing that ought to sound familiar. May your offspring possess the city gates of their enemies. There is no indication that the family knew of the promise to Abraham, which was phrased in precisely the same way. 22-17. What may at first seem a coincidence is further proof of God's involvement. 24-61-67. Just as Rebekah showed faith in agreeing to marry Isaac, Isaac also trusted God, and his father, with this match. Rebecca had her face covered with a veil, 24-65. Until the moment of the wedding. So Isaac needed to believe that the woman God had chosen would not only fit what he needed but would also be appealing to him. Apparently she was, because even though Isaac was grieving his mother's death, Rebecca was able to bring him comfort and love, 24-67. Please like, share, subscribe.